PJ, you were at the British Open.
I was.
The most prestigious tournament on the PSA Tour, as was rammed down our throats. Tell me this, before we even get into the scene there, were you guys given money, or were the players given bonus money to say prestigious whenever they talked about the tournament?
No added bonuses for us, Bill. No.
Dude.
It's a fact. It's our Wimbledon, Bill. Come on. It is the longest standing, most prestigious and most sought after trophy.
But you guys said prestigious. Literally, you could not turn on a British Open interview, a broadcast, or go online and read anything. Somebody didn't say prestigious 90 times?
Yeah, we just try to reiterate the fact.
You had me convinced it was prestigious by the end. I was killing the tournament early. I was calling it the JCT at Birmingham.
Oh my gosh, that's like a cardinal. That's an insult, Bill.
I think that was my point.
Yeah.
How important could it have been if Ali Farag dropped out?
He didn't necessarily drop out. He just retired from the game.
Right, before the most prestigious event in squash.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know.
Fans, we are back with another edition of The Rundown, catching you up on all the news from professional squash. See, we skipped a week, and this is what's happened. From fans, we are back with another edition of The Rundown, catching you up on all the news in professional squash. My name is Bill Buckingham, and obviously it's been so long since I've done this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I am here with my co-host, PJ. PJ, so you know what this is like. You hadn't done PSA, you hadn't done squash TV in 5 months, and now this is me. After 2 weeks, I can't even do our.
It feels like starting all over again, Bill. It does. Yeah.
Where's Connor when you need him?
I know. Very true. Very true. You got there in the end. The listeners don't need to know that this was your 12th take.
Exactly. How are you? Good to see you.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, all good, all good. It's a little bit of a dry spell here in the UK, and you can probably tell with a little bit nasal. I've got some allergies that are flying around. Silver birch, I think, is actually the victim.
What's silver birch?
It's a tree.
Oh, Jesus.
It's a tree, yeah. Silver birch tree, yeah. Uh-huh. And we've got a few planted outside the house. We're trying to get them cut down, but the council won't allow it.
Is that the council? Is the council like a homeowners association?
No, they're responsible for the roads and the trees and the lighting and basically the general condition of the area.
Huh.
And we tried to get them cut down, but we weren't allowed, unfortunately. This time of the year, every year for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, it's very frustrating, and it can literally. The irony is, I've just been up in Birmingham for a week at the British Open, came back no problems whatsoever,
right.
And the second I walked through the door, it all started up again. Anyway,
you should have some of my neighbors come. The ones who cut down all my trees, they should come to you. They would have no problem at all. Your trees would be gone.
I'll pay for their flight over. Tell them. You set it up, and I'll.
Not to be old man, but I have never had allergy problems at all, and this spring has been crushing me here. And I went to Chicago this past weekend for the NSL. And the air quality in Chicago, they said I got there on Friday, and they said the air quality on Friday was the worst it had been in like 50 years. Oof. And it was a combination of pollen and all the wildfires in Canada.
Wow, yeah.
And I walked 1.5 miles from my hotel to the U Club. PJ, it looked like I had smoked 5 joints. My eyes were so red. Yeah. And it was ridiculous. I went into like the men's locker room and just like splashed water in my face. So I didn't literally look like I was stoned. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
You couldn't breathe. Craziness. But so that was.
Considering you'd only smoked 4, that's still pretty bad. Yeah.
Exactly. You have to do it for my voice. When you have a voice like that and people expect a low voice.
Is that what it is?
So you have to smoke. So there's only so many cigars you could smoke, PJ. Come on now. It's illegal. Legal in Connecticut, legal in Illinois. So there you go.
That's good. That's why you have properties in both.
So so I was in Chicago. I flew to Chicago. Flying to Chicago is so easy. I think wheels up to wheels down. It's like 1.5 hours from Connecticut, like a breeze flight.
Perfect.
Literally, when you get to the point where they say you fly a lot, where it says you have reached the cruising altitude, feel free to walk around the cabin. Like the time between that and the initial descent's like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you get your.
I like those kind of flights.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Like the initial descent starts and 50 minutes later you've landed. I'm like, just freaking put the plane down. Like when a plane crashes, it crashes like in a minute. So I had an obese seatmate for the first time now. So I had I know 3 seats. He was sitting in the middle. I always get the aisle. I always get the aisle, the last seat at the end of the plane. I always do that. Last seat at the end of the plane, closest to the bathroom for obvious reasons at my age. And there was a guy sitting in the middle seat who was just ridiculously fat, and unfortunately, and did the man spread, the whole deal. I sat down, I looked at him. There's just nobody on the right-hand side of him at that point, and they were still boarding. And I was just like, please, nobody show up, nobody show up. And thankfully, nobody showed up, and he moved over because it would have been the worst flight ever.
That would have been the longest hour and 20 minutes of flight.
Yes, that would be. And people always ask me, they say, why do you always book the last seat? And I said, number one, because of the bathroom. That's really, and also they don't charge you for it. It's free. So there you go. Save that $12. But the worst part about it is when you deplane, no one checks their luggage anymore. Everybody brings these ridiculously big suitcases and stuffs them up top. And then they wait to the last minute to pop them open and to take them down so they could deboard. So it takes longer to deplane than it takes to actually fly there.
It takes longer to deplane in the US, Bill, because I hate to say it, the common sense levels of passengers in the US is nigh on non-existent.
Agreed, because they don't travel. US people don't travel.
They don't travel, and they will sit there and wait until it's there. They won't prepare. They won't look ahead and see a couple of lanes ahead are already disembarking. So I'll get up now and I'll get my bag out. They'll sit there. They'll wait till the lane in front is literally gone. They then get up and then they get their bag out and then they disembark.
Yes.
So the whole thing is just an absolute shambles.
So, yeah.
The worst disembarkers, if that's even a word, of an aeroplane in the world.
Americans are bad at math and disembarking.
Yes, it's maths for a start. It's not math. Let's get the record straight. And it's disembarking.
And disembarking. Yeah. I would fly in an airline, 100% fly in an airplane that only allows people to bring on luggage that you could put underneath your seat. I would pay extra for it, so I don't have to go through that nonsense.
You'd have to sit there and wait.
But either way, that's old man.
So even though you saved yourself $12, you sat next to a really fat guy who spread out and made the flight worse, and then you had to spend probably another hour trying to get off the flight.
This dude had more candy. He must have went to, I don't know where he went. I'm assuming he went to the candy store at home, because if he had spent money in the store at the airport, it would have been like $500 because they charge you like $9 for a Hershey bar there. He must have had 15 candy bars. And he ate them all in the hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with his diet, though, Bill. It's his metabolism.
Sure.
It's just very unfortunate with his metabolism.
Absolutely. Safe in the knowledge he's not listening to this. But you were, PJ, you were at the British Open.
I was.
The most prestigious tournament on the PSA Tour, as was rammed down our throats. Tell me this, before we even get into the scene there, were you guys given money, or were the players given bonus money to say prestigious whenever they talked about the tournament?
No added bonuses for us, Bill. No,
dude,
it's a fact. It's our Wimbledon, Bill. Come on, it is the longest standing, most prestigious, and most sought after trophy.
More than the World's, more than the World Championship.
It used to be known as the World Championship
for sure.
Used to be in the heyday.
Used to be. You used to be number 4 in the world, PJ. Doesn't mean you could play now.
No, that's very true.
So.
Oh, it's a really good question. Paul would probably opt for the World Championship title over the British Open now.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you look at all the names of the greats,
Del Harris,
he's not on the British Open winners list. Chris Dittmar's not even on the British Open winners list.
I always mess those two up.
Yeah.
But you guys said prestigious, like literally, you could not turn on a British Open interview, a broadcast, or go online and read anything. Somebody didn't say prestigious like 90 times?
Yeah, we just try to reiterate the fact.
You had me convinced it was prestigious by the end. I was killing the tournament early. I was calling it the JCT at Birmingham early on.
Oh my gosh, that's like a cardinal. That's an insult, Bill. How dare you.
I think that was my point. Ali dropped. How important could it have been if Ali Farag dropped out?
He didn't necessarily drop out. He just retired from the game.
Right before the most prestigious event in squash. Interesting. Interesting.
Certainly created a few stories throughout the week.
Absolutely.
Needless to say.
Absolutely. So what was it like there, PJ? As the tournament went on, obviously the crowds were fantastic. It turned into a great event in the end, a lot of drama. So you were there the whole time. It was you were back on PSA TV, Squash TV, as I get corrected when I call it PSA TV. Sorry, Connor Sheen, I know you're listening. I apologize for calling it PSA TV. What was the scene like at the Rep Theater? It looked awesome.
Yeah, and I've been so fortunate in my commentary career, and since moving back, as you and I have discussed, I was hoping to do more events. I've ended up doing less, which is not ideal for me. However, I have had the fortune of commentating at probably the 3 best events on the tour right now. The best 4 events. The US Open, September, the Qatar Classic in October, November, depending on when it is. Then you got John Nimick's Tournament of Champions in January, and now the British Open. So to be part of those 4 events, I feel extremely fortunate, very lucky. And in my opinion, after all is said and done with all of those events that I've managed to do this year, for me, the British Open this year is probably the best event that I've been privy to.
Prestigious.
And also prestigious. But it was from top to bottom, the detail within the whole production was as tight and slick as I've ever seen. And PSA now, they've taken over. PSA actually run the British Open now, so they're not external promoters or producers. It's all run in-house. I think this is now the 2nd year at the Rep Theatre, and they learned a lot from last year. So any of the areas where they fell short were rectified. And any player that you spoke to, everybody got that same kind of feel. And players often talk about the Tournament of Champions as well, with John Nimick and his team over there, how well the players are looked after. And again, we as the commentary team and the TV crew always are very well looked after in that little section up the back of the auditorium there. And John appreciates what we do. And PSA were exactly this. For me, it was another amazing week. Took a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things because I'd had the 6-month period away. And the first couple of matches felt a bit rusty, but I'm out there. I've said this to you before. What better job is there for an ex-player to be sitting there with your best buddy, watching the best players in the world getting paid?
Right.
It's literally like a dream come true. There is no substitute. Nothing even comes close to playing, but it's not a million miles away. It was an amazing week, and the squash was it was off the charts.
What was the hardest thing to readjust to? Was it the timing of when you have a broadcast partner of when to speak, when not to speak, that kind of rhythm back and forth? Is that the most difficult part to adapt to after you've been away for a bit?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, and also just getting used to when you've got your headphones on, you've got the director is giving you instructions as to what pictures will be coming up on the screen. You've then got your fellow commentator that you'll be chatting with. You're trying to watch the match and try and pick up on all the subtleties and the nuances within the game and the tactical analysis and the technical analysis, and talk about points within the match that need to appeal to beginners, intermediates and advanced levels. So that kind of thing just takes a little bit of adjusting. Maybe I would say the first day it took to get used to that. And then also in between the segments of the matches, there's periods of time where we go into what's called in vision, where we go into the studio and Joey and I, or Lisa and I, or Vanessa and I, we'll go in and we'll be on camera discussing the upcoming matches and the schedule and that kind of thing. And that also takes a little bit of time because they're live. So that comes with an added amount of pressure, and there's no retakes. But with the producer or the director that we have now, a guy called Thomas, he's been with us.
Oh, yeah. I know
probably
Thomas.
the best part of 15 years. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And with him and Lee Beechall and Joey, the 3 of them basically have completely transformed the production and the game. And Thomas now, because he's been involved for so many years, has very good squash knowledge. So it's not like you've got a set of cameramen who will just be showing you certain pictures from certain angles. Thomas has a good sense of when to move to certain angles depending on where the rally is on the court, which is a skill and an art in itself.
Right.
And also his man management, the way he speaks with us down through the communication through the headphones, is world class. And I've been privy to a couple of Commonwealth Games now with extremely experienced TV crews, and we had the Olympic TV people come in to watch for a couple of days.
Interesting.
To assess and monitor how we were doing. And on the penultimate day, we got a message back just saying they literally cannot believe the level of the quality of the show that we're putting out with the budget that we have. These guys are used to dealing with Champions League soccer, Premier League soccer, World Cups, Wimbledon, French Opens, multi-million pound kits, and we're doing it on probably around 500,000.
Right. Were they surprised at the amount of players that were there? Because they usually probably they only think 16 really is what's normal.
What's normal, yeah. They were blown away. They were blown away by the whole thing. And so we got a lovely message from them just saying, listen, we've come in here and we now know that squash is not going to be one of those sports that we're going to need to worry about in LA 2028. You guys have got it all covered.
So that Squash TV is going to run the Olympics coverage in 2028?
I need to get confirmation of that, but I think they'll definitely have a heavy involvement, but to what extent, I'm not entirely sure yet.
Interesting. Wow, that would be very interesting. I wonder.
I'll find out more details.
I'm curious.
So don't quote me on
no,
that.
for sure. I'm always curious about that because if you watch other sports on the Olympics, what they typically have is they have for broadcasting, they usually have an Olympic broadcaster and then someone with them who is part of that sport, right? And then they're either in the booth with the NBC broadcaster, as it were, and then there's a sideline reporter of some sort who has intimate knowledge of the sport. So I was curious if that's how they were going to do it, have Mike Tirico or somebody, you or PJ in the booth, and then have, I don't know, Lisa Aitken or, I don't know, Sling on the sidelines interviewing people or something like that for knowledge of the sport.
We're still a little bit in the dark as to how that will unfold, but to get the message and the feedback that we did was
it's gratifying for sure.
It's really rewarding and satisfying. Yeah, exactly.
So for people like me who just give you guys a hard time about how your job's very easy because you only do a couple of matches a day, I'm interested in this because when I do the PSA events and I MC them, I don't have to show up until an hour before the matches to get my earpieces in and all that kind of stuff to get ready. Yeah. But you guys have been there doing stuff. What's your typical day like? So say there's a day even of full matches or even a day of just night matches when it comes to the stand-ups and the stuff for the production. What's a typical day for an announcer like you?
When we first started out in 2010, our typical day would have been similar to yours. We would literally have to get there half an hour before we were going on air because we never really had a pre-show or an introduction into what was coming up. It would be a case of as soon as cameras went live, it was welcome to the Tournament of Champions 2020. I'm Jerry Barrington, joining me is Paul Johnson. It will be straight out. However, now we have a segment at the beginning of the show that's anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, which will prelude into the action that's just about to come up in front of you before the matches. So for us to get the itinerary list and the schedule for that particular pre-show, let's say, for example, cameras will be rolling from 12 o'clock. That's when the players will be introduced and Michael Absalom or yourself will come on. We have a meeting 2 to 2.5 hours before, like a pre-production, where we will run through the list of upcoming activities before the matches. Then we'll go out and depending on who the commentary pairings are or who's going to be envisioned, we'll have a 15 to 20 minute per pair rehearsal. So this is a lot more detailed and it's basically just a quick dummy run of the questions that are going to be asked and a look ahead at the schedule, just so when we go live, and this is the beauty of it and also a little bit of the stress which makes it more fun in a strange kind of way, is it'll give us an idea of all the questions maybe that Joey's going to ask, but there's nothing is recorded. There's no pre-record really.
It's all live.
It's all live.
So the Willstrop match, the Willstrop interview that happened the previous event when the caused all the controversy talking about Asal, that wasn't taped. That was done live.
That would have been a live interview. Yeah. Every now and again, if it's a stacked show, say for example the semi-finals or the final, where we've got to be very tight with hitting our counts and our timings for commercial reasons for other productions, at the beginning of the show there may be a 1 minute or a 30-second pre-recorded segment that he'll get dressed up in the same kit that he'll be wearing for the final, and it may be you may see him walking outside the venue just saying, welcome to Windy City, this is the World Championships where champions are made, and let's get to the action. And then the cameras will cut, and then from there on in it will be like a live show. Right. Yeah. So very small segments are taped, actually recorded.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who cut Joey's hair, by the way? It was the worst haircut ever. Did Beavis and Butthead's Barber cut it.
Collis Shake. I'm going to have to disagree with you. He looked so much better.
He looked better, but he
so
had like a
much
big mohawk looking thing. Like he needed to.
Yeah, he looked a bit like, was it
He looked like
Stan
Beavis
Laurel?
or Butthead. I'm not sure which
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, he looked like Stan Laurel, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so much better. Long overdue.
Definitely.
And the feedback was pretty good as soon as he got it done.
Except
and
me.
He's, apart from you. Yeah. You can take that with him in person.
Well, but you total missed by you not having him do that on our podcast. That was a total miss. That would have been probably our most listened to and watched podcast ever. So sorry.
Oh, listen, apparently, according to you, it's not a very good job was done of the haircut. So
well, the result,
he's going to need it. He's going to need it cut again. So we'll get him on.
He's definitely going to need it cut again. So quickly, just going back to the where you were, and it was interesting. You mentioned it, the TOC and the British Open. The players talking about them being their favorite events and like the biggest events that they play. Yeah. The players that I talked to this week in Chicago, the pro players who played both of those, they agree with that. Their only issue, and they said the British Open has the same issue as the TOC. I guess the venue that wasn't the glass court was quite far away for the British Open because they couldn't use the normal venue because of a tennis tournament that was going on or something.
Yeah, there's the main club up in that area is called Edgbaston,
and it was being used for something.
Yeah, it's again squash plays second fiddle, doesn't it, to tennis as per usual.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know much about the event that was on, but it's one of those. I think there's grass courts there, Bill, and obviously we've got Wimbledon coming up in a few weeks.
Right. So
some of the international players will be coming over, playing a little bit of a circuit after the French Open, maybe into Edgbaston. There's another one at the Queen's Club in London, and they'll be sharpening their tools before they take to the courts of Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, the LTA probably completely takes over the entire facility.
And I guess it was a 45-minute ride to the other courts, and so they compared it to the TOC because as I think it was Victor Cron I was talking to, who said, if you don't make it to the glass court, it's almost like you weren't part of the event, because at the TOC, the same way, the venues are spread out all over New York City for the early rounds. They only play a certain amount of matches on the glass court. So if you don't make it to the glass court, it's like you didn't even compete in the event. And they said they get that same feeling at the prestigious British Open.
Bill, it's the most prestigious event on tour.
Is it prestigious or prestigious?
Prestigious.
Prestigious, okay.
It's down to you to get far enough in the draw so you go and play.
True.
On the glass
they weren't
court.
complaining.
Back in the generations that I was playing at.
There we go.
The first rounds, you weren't automatically allowed to go and play on the glass. Even Tournament of Champions, when I first went in the late 90s, I had to play 2 to 3 qualifying matches.
Right.
Okay, they were in New York City, so it wasn't too bad.
Right.
But it was only after you won those 3 matches that you got
the
privilege of playing on the glass.
Right.
And that's not too dissimilar to the British Open. So even we talk about the history of the British Open, when it was made famous, it was when it was at the Wembley Conference Centre, which was in the heart of the city in London. And some of the early rounds would be other clubs in and around the London area. And it was only when you made it through to certain stages would you make it onto the glass court for the televised events. So not a lot has changed in that respect.
No, for sure. I think it was just an observation they made. I think it was probably exacerbated by the fact that the venue was so far away. It's one thing if you could walk across the street and the glass court's there, so you could at least walk in and hit on the glass court or see it. But if you're 45 minutes away, you're not really going to make that trek down there. I think that was more the point. So
last year that wasn't the case.
Was not the case.
Last year they did have matches at Priory, and it was a lot more convenient and a lot easier. I remember as a player, I preferred the Tournament of Champions because I'm a London boy, but I've gone over to New York and the Big Apple.
Right.
And the first year I went and played it, Richard Chin picked me up from JFK and he drove me around New York City for a couple of hours, and I was completely blown away by the whole thing.
How fast did Richard Chin drive when he picked you up at the airport? The guy drives like a freaking maniac.
He does drive like a maniac, but this is back in the late 90s in New York City, and this was pre-Giuliani.
Okay.
So we never really stopped at many red lights.
No.
Then, as we're driving back out the city, I said, where are we heading? Where do you live? He said, we're heading to the Bronx.
Right.
Now, as a London boy going into the Bronx, the reputation that the Bronx had was horrendous.
Right.
Little did I know at the time that you've obviously got the North Bronx and the South Bronx.
Yeah, he's like in Riverdale, the nice part of the Bronx.
Correct. It was his mum's place, and we went and got there. He said, and I remember he got out of the car, went up and he opened the door to his mum's place, and I was still sat in the car. And he said, "What are you waiting for?" And I said, "I'm waiting for you to open the door,
So
and then I'm just going to bolt and run as fast as I can." He's PJ. This is not the same. This is not the part of the Bronx you need to be worried about.
This is not Bonfire of the Vanities. There, PJ. Hey, so, question for you: Ali Farag had just retired, obviously just retired right before the British Open. Was it still on the tip of everybody's tongue? There was it still a subject, or did people moved on, or was it what everybody talked about that week?
Massively. So it was on every. It was within. I say within. It was in everybody's questions to the players post match. Everybody wanted to get some response and reaction to Ali's retirement, and not many could really figure it out or why he'd done it.
Right,
or
still a mystery.
That the reasons that he announced were all justified, but the timing of it just seemed a little bit odd.
Right,
and there was a different feel about it. The fact that he wasn't there, a lot of people then just felt it became a 2-horse race, and he was sorely missed. He
was there though. No, I saw him. He got the Player of the Year trophy. So
no, he wasn't. No, he got the players. He got 2 awards again. He's not even in the freaking tournament. Yeah. He still picked up 2 awards. It was the Player of the Year, and then
like Spirit of PSA or something
Spirit
like that.
Of the game. Yeah, I think he and Sherbini have won the men's and the women's.
I saw a picture of him and Sherbini holding their trophies together. Had they won it previously, so they just used an old photo?
They must have done. That was old.
Okay, so he did not show up. He did not show up.
No, he wasn't there. No, he sent 2 nice video messages from his office, and behind him there was a big Harvard sign, branding, doing some advertising for Harvard.
Speaking of ceremonies, the Hall of Fame took place. Jonah Barrington and Sarah Fitzgerald inducted into the Hall of Fame. The PSA had people are complaining online, of course, because they don't know. Fair enough, the PSA has not done a great job of advertising this, because you never know until the next day when you read about it. People were complaining that why Jonah took so long for Jonah to get into the Hall of Fame, and I was like, they just started the Hall of Fame this year, so it's not really that long. But you were there at the ceremony. I'm sure Joey was there. I'm sure it was probably a pretty heartwarming ceremony.
The Hall of Fame actually started last year.
Right,
Bill.
right.
We had Susan Devoy and Jahangir Khan came over for the first one.
Right.
And then I think Jamshid Khan, Michelle Martin, Jeff Hunt's also been inducted. Right. And this year, I don't understand the timings and the significance of having Sarah and Jonah this year.
I don't understand the timing. So after the first one, of course, my curiosity, emailed Alex Goff and said, "Hey, I didn't know you guys had a Hall of Fame. What's the criteria? How are you doing this?" And he said, "I'm going to put you in touch with Andy Malley of the PSA, who you know, and he'll outline it for you." And then even before I sent an email to Andy Malley, Alex emailed me one more email and said, "By the way, there is no MC Hall of Fame, so don't even ask." So I asked Andy, and Andy was pretty opaque about it, but he said they're going to go around at different events and intro 2 people. It makes sense that Barrington was entered in the British Open. Why Fitzgerald? Because she's Australian, maybe because they only wanted to do 2 at the Australian Open, and they had already done it. But she seemed thrilled about it.
Okay. Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. She's amazing. I agree. You're not the only person that's a little bit disappointed in the lack of exposure. It would have been last year when we had the event was a complete and utter disaster. When Jahangir and Susan Devoy were inducted, it was almost like, you remember the old days when you were at school, they used to wheel out the old VHS videos with the TVs, and you'd watch something on there and it would all be crackly and disjointed. And then they had this small crappy speaker.
It's like our YouTube channel, PJ. It's like the Squash TV YouTube channel.
Bill, it was brutal last year. It was a complete disaster. You couldn't hear any of the interviews. The videos and the footage of Jahangir and Susan didn't come out properly. It was a nightmare. This year, completely different ball game. Beautiful 60-odd inch LED displays. Nice. Totally new sound system that we used the PSA sound kit for, and it was completely different.
Joey, why don't they stream it?
That's another good point. I will actually find out, because that would be a great thing. It was filmed. We had a camera in the front of the room, right in front of where the players were being inducted. So it would have been quite an easy thing to stream.
Yeah,
I don't know how many people want to stream in for that, tune in for that.
I would. US Squash is probably one of the most poorly managed squash organizations in the world, and they stream everything, and you tune into what you want to tune into. I would have tuned into that. I thought that would be interesting. I've never heard Jonah Barrington speak. I would love to hear him speak.
Oh my gosh. Lee Beecher interviewed him, and it was tough for Lee because Lee's got a very personal relationship with Jonah. And when Lee grew up playing up in Lee Beecher played in Pontefract for many years and was under the guidance of Malcolm Wilstrop for the majority of his junior career. But Malcolm was a real stickler for rules, manners, ethics, behaviour, and those kind of things. And he actually, at one stage, because of Beechel's behaviour, what he did, I don't know, but Malcolm actually banned Beech for 6 months. Said, you're no longer welcome in the club.
Whoa.
And during that time, that was when Lee went down and actually did some work with Jonah. So the time that they had together was very personal. So Lee had to interview him.
That's cool.
And I think Jonah must have been up there for about 40, 45 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love.
Sarah Fitzgerald was amazing with tons of different stories, and she's very candid. And it dropped a few.
I hope somebody recorded it and they put it up on socials. I would love to see that.
She's lovely. She's the best. She's amazing, and we actually need her back in for some commentary and get her back involved in the game again because she's a huge addition.
Well, they pretty much let anybody do commentary these days, PJ. By what I saw at the British Open.
Yeah, himself included.
No, not yourself included. I was thinking more of Laura staring like with her serial killer eyes whenever she was like behind the desk. But we won't talk about that.
But Jonah, basically, he is so articulate. He's so well read. And the entire room for the 45 minutes, you were just captivated and listening to his. And bearing in mind, Bill, like we wouldn't even be sitting here talking about squash if it wasn't for Jonah.
For sure.
He's basically the main man who took the game from amateur status and turned it into professional sport. We owe a lot to him, and it was a very fitting not send off, but it was a very fitting recognition of his efforts for the game. And I was fortunate enough. Joey got to pick 10 members for his table. We had 10 guests on our table.
That's cool.
And I was very lucky to be part of quite an elite table. Yeah, it was lovely.
For sure. It would behoove the PSA, number one, they need to probably start publishing the criteria because at this point it's still cool, right? Everybody they induct, it's a no-brainer, right? They haven't inducted anybody, but at some point, somebody's not going to get inducted in. They're going to be like, why aren't I inducted into the Hall of Fame? And it's going to become contentious because they have no criteria published whatsoever.
What sports do have a criteria?
Oh, sure. The Baseball Hall of Fame has a whole criteria listed. NBA Hall, all the major sports, there's certain major criteria. Even U.S. squash, as I said, as poorly managed as it is, has real criteria for sure. You need to have won a certain amount of national titles. You need to have been retired for a certain amount of years. There's definitely criteria.
So it's a very small pool, isn't it? Really?
For now it is, but it's not going to be down. So here's all I'm thinking is when it comes down the road, when Mustafa Asal, it's time for him to get inducted to the Hall of Fame and he's not. And you're like going to be like, why isn't Mustafa Asal in the Hall of Fame? Oh, and all the rumors will fly why he's not in the Hall of Fame. And nobody could point to anything and say, oh, because he didn't do this or because he did do that. That's my only.
I think it's safe to say it's just a matter of time for Mustafa.
No, for sure. So as far as the tournament itself, PJ, it was some good, not a lot of close matches really, but a lot of dramatic matches. And I'll just go for me, the ones that I watched. If I didn't watch them live, I watched them on replay. I think the one that got probably the most play on social media was the Macon Asal match.
Yeah.
So Macon made it clear. So after Macon played Cruin, and I like Macon now. I'm a fan of Macon. I met him in Houston. He was really a nice, fun guy to talk to. And he came out after the Cruin match and said, I think his quote was, I wasn't going to lose to anybody who fist pumped after the first point. Which basically means he'll never play or lose to an American junior player, I guess is what he meant. It's the first thing I thought of. But so coming off of that, he was going to play Asal, and he made it clear before that match he wasn't going to take the physical punishment that Asal dishes out. He was going to give as good as he took. And he certainly didn't work out for him because he's not as good as Asal in the end, right? So you could try to play Asal's game, but if it's going to take even a little away from your game, which Macon needs every bit of his game to be on point to beat Asal, he's not going to beat Asal playing like that. He's just not.
I think it's a very good point. For me, John Macon got a little bit too involved with worrying about what Mustafa potentially might be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, it was almost as though he'd preempted how he was going to move in certain situations in the court, what he was going to do with certain parts of the body to stop Asal being allowed to dominate the middle of the court. And as a result of that, he retracted away from his own natural style of play.
Right.
And that's to your point. I think tactically, he got too pent up on worrying about his opponent as opposed to trying to execute his tactical game plan of how he was going to outplay Mustafa, not try to outmuscle him. Because in the end, I'm a massive fan of Giles. He's a great kid, and I love the way that he's always evolving his game, and he's thoroughly deserves being number 4 in the world right now. But he, looking back at that particular match, I don't think he gave a particularly good account of himself. And Asal, who's been rightly or wrongly tarnished with this reputation, in this particular match, I don't think Asal did much wrong at all.
Right.
So Joel was actually made out to be the bad guy.
Not according to the fans. The fans were so heavily in Macon's corner. It was crazy.
Yeah, but even I and Jason Foster, in my opinion, done an unbelievable job of refereeing that match. I don't think any other ref could have handled that. And I know they couldn't actually. Right. They may say they've been able to, but he couldn't. Nobody could have handled it as well as he did. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And even John Macon's father, after the match, went up to Jason and complimented him on how he dealt with that particular situation. So kudos to Joel's father. So Joel's dad knew that it was a tricky match for the referees.
Who coaches Joel?
He does a little bit of work with a guy called Miles Jenkins. Miles Jenkins,
I know who that is.
That was in his corner. Okay. Yeah, he's another nice guy. The pair of them have got a very good formula between them. And I also think he pops over and does a little bit of work with Johnny Williams from time to time in Switzerland.
So do you think Miles Jenkins said, hey, this is Joel told him this is what I'm going to do, and Miles Jenkins said, go for it? Or did Miles Jenkins say, look, I can't control what Joel does at this point. If Joel wants to go that route and try to beat him that way, he's going to do it?
I think Joel Macon is in charge of Joel Macon's squash, so to speak. I don't think he's really got a person that oversees. He'll have Miles will give him some ideas. Johnny Williams will give him some ideas. But at the end of the day, Joel's going to do what Joel wants to do because he's experienced enough now to know what's best for him. And listen, he's number 4 in the world. And at the moment, you've now got the 4. You've got Asal, Elias, Cole, and Macon. The guys behind them they're starting to build bridge a little bit of a gap between themselves and the rest of the tour.
Interesting choice to go that route in a semifinal of the British Open, to change up what you do and try to be more physical than you already are. You're already a physical player. It's almost like you're waving the white flag to start saying, look, I can't beat him playing my normal squash. I can't do it. I'm going to try this. And so I guess I'm not sure, is that good or bad? I'm asking you that question. Maybe is that the way to do it if you know you can't win the other way? So change up tactics and be more physical to beat him?
I don't think Joel thinks that way. I don't think Joel doubts himself. In Joel's mind, he will believe that he can beat Mustafa, and he has beaten Mustafa. I feel that with all of the criticism that Asal has got over the last 18 months to 2 years, shall we say, with certain aspects of his movement, Joel kind of took it into his own hands, not because he doubts himself as being able to beat him on a squash level, but he wasn't going to roll over and be bullied by Mustafa. When Joel played Mustafa in Canary Wharf a few years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, I think it was just post-COVID, that turned into a proper rumble. And Joel's got no issues with rolling his sleeves up and getting stuck into a player, which is fine. And I think that he felt that he maybe, because he had success over Mustafa in that event at Canary Wharf, maybe he was going to try that approach here in Birmingham. For me, it just felt like it backfired because Mustafa was a bit too clever. This is 2 to 3 years ago. Mustafa and Joel are both better players than they were 2 to 3 years ago. But Mustafa now has gone to a whole new realm.
Whole new level, yeah. So that was an interesting match for sure. The other one was another Asal match, and it was only the second round. He played Jonah Bryant. Jonah Bryant gave a great account of himself, was up 2-1, and then Jonah Bryant got caught up in the Asalness.
2-1-9-6.
2-1-9-6, and he got caught up. Instead of just playing and going on, he turned into a junior player and started complaining to the ref, starting every time that Asal brushed into him. He complained and lost his focus. I was rooting for Jonah Bryant to win. I'm a huge Asal fan. I want Asal to do well in every tournament, but it would have been nice with Farag out of the mix to have a totally new dynamic for the rest of the tournament. It would have opened up the draw, and we would have seen some people scrapping to get to a British Open final for the first time. And instead, Jonah Bryant turned into a junior player, unfortunately. My opinion.
I wouldn't use the term he turned into a junior player. Jonah Bryant played off his head.
He did, but
played unbelievable.
He did.
So good. He was so good. This is what the good players or the great players do, Bill. Even though he's 9-6 down, when required, Mustafa if Jonah was going to win that match from that point, he was going to have to earn it. He wasn't going to give anything to Jonah. Now, my opinion, and this is something that affected Mustafa all week.
Mm-hmm.
He's won the World Championships. A couple of days later, he's in Chicago. We'll backtrack. He's in Cairo. From Cairo, he flies to New York for a week to spend some time with Jimbo.
Mm-hmm.
To basically, this is at the time when all the stuff's hitting the fan with squash mad quash, whatever it is. He's gone for a week to decompress and spend a bit of time with Jimbo just to clear his head. From New York, he's then gone to Chicago. He's played the World Championships, won the World Championships without dropping a game, played brilliantly. From Chicago, he's then gone back to Egypt to play for his club Palm Hills. He would have been obligated to play that event because they're his sponsors. Goes and wins that event. Then from Cairo, he then has to fly over to Birmingham to try and defend the British Open. Now, in hindsight, he would have loved to have skipped Palm Hills and gone straight and done the British Open after a week's rest, but he didn't get a chance to do that. So when he turned up at the British Open, everybody saw it. And again, I'm a massive Jonah fan. Jonah's got a very bright future ahead of him. But Asal was flat. Asal was flat. Make no mistake about it, okay? He's a 22-year-old kid who's just gone 12,500 miles around the world, numerous time changes, winning events, and then he's got to turn up and try and play his best squash at the British Open, the most prestigious event on tour, which is brutal. It's brutal.
For sure.
It's so hard.
For sure.
So he managed to get through his first round. He wasn't particularly tested. Jonah got stuck into him, very nearly beat him. But we never saw the best version of Mustafa all week, really.
Right. My only reason I say Bryant turned into a junior is during the first three games, and even into the fourth game, he wasn't complaining about everything. He was playing really good squash. And when Asal's flat, that's when you have to take him. And it started when Asal started turning it around a little bit is then when Jonah took the bait, it seemed. And it's time when you need a guy, he's young, he's a kid. And that's what pros do. Mohammed does it to everyone, right? Sharbagi does it to everyone. He's done it to Zakaria 2 matches in a row. That he basically just dominates the match.
It just thumped.
But Jonah ignored all that early, and then he started it turned into every time he ticked him, he would look back at the ref and complain about it. And I was like, he's going to lose it, and this is where he's going to lose it, and he certainly did. So just I guess saying he turned into a junior is too strong. He just let the distraction of Asal get the best of him when he had a chance to basically pull what would have been the biggest upset on the PSA Tour in years.
Precisely. So find me a 19-year-old kid that's 2 points away from dethroning the number one in the world and world champion in the second round of the British Open. By far the biggest match of his career, and that had been the biggest news on the PSA Tour for years.
I'll tell you one.
For him,
I'll tell you one. Amina Orfi beat Sherbini, didn't let any distractions get to her. I mean, not to change the subject, but it can be done.
Orfi's also 5 in the world. Jonah Bryant's 68 at the time.
Fair point.
So he's a lot further down.
Fair point.
The rankings, the gap is a lot greater.
No, I got you.
And for somebody that can keep a calm head when all that chaos is going on around them, that would have been an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah.
But I still stick to what I've said on this podcast before. As good as Jonah is and as good as Zakaria is, back I was nowhere near as good as that at the same age, but the likes of Simon Park, the likes of Peter Marshall, they did beat top 3, top 4 players in the world at that age. So they did have that mental fortitude to come through those kind of big moments.
Right.
So it's a massive learning curve for Jonah. The confidence that he should take from that will be huge. He's very new onto the World Tour, and his rise up to now 27 in the world rankings is nothing shy of, it's meteoric and miraculous, and he's doing brilliant jobs.
And I'll deny I said any of this once he becomes top 5 and starts creaming everybody else. I don't remember saying anything bad about him.
Don't worry.
So speaking of Orfi, she had an interesting situation. So talk about someone who's only 17 years old. We talk about Mustafa flying here, there, and everywhere. Orfi's doing the same thing at age 17. And unfortunately, her father was banned from being at this event. I don't know if that ban just took place. It was unclear. It was more mentioned anecdotally anecdotally by people saying, why isn't she being coached by her father? Oh, her father got banned, but no real news about why that happened or if there was one incident or whatever. But the point was her coaching situation was off the charts. So first match I saw her play, she had a U.S. national team coach her, which was bonkers. absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
She's a junior player for the Egyptian junior national team that's the number 1 team in the world, and U.S. is number 2. And her competing coach, who's going to face her this July or August in Cairo, is coaching her. Not to mention, she had a chance where she would be playing Olivia Weaver in the final.
Yeah,
Just absolutely
yeah.
nuts. Believe me, I saw that and I was like, am I seeing things? Like, who allowed that? The next night, somebody finally got through to them and said, that's not a good look. Optically, it's not a good look. And the Dunlop rep, who I don't know his name, the Dunlop guys,
Steve Heatley,
who I see in the booth, who see in the Dunlop booth at events, was coaching her.
Yeah.
So we went from a national team coach to the Dunlop rep. Then she jumped even another level up, and in the semifinal against Gohar, had Noral Sherbini coaching her. So, PJ, I'm going to ask you as a player. I think it's funny. I thought the whole U.S. national team coach was absolutely ridiculous. Most ridiculous thing I ever saw. But the other coaches, it just, at what point is it is having a coach not worth it? What could the Dunlop rep have been telling her between games? Like, he doesn't watch her play, doesn't practice with her.
No, I'm sure the messages would have been passed on from
her dad,
sources outside. Yeah, her dad was in Birmingham.
I'm assuming
he was at the he was at the hotel, but he just wasn't allowed into the venue.
Okay.
I can't go into details as to exactly why that
yes,
was.
You can. Yes, you can, PJ. I will edit it all out. Go in.
I absolutely
I'll edit it all. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course you will. Yeah. So Steve's messages would have just been relayed on from maybe her dad, who we know is very heavily involved with her game. I don't understand the Steve Heatley connection. Obviously, as a Dunlop player, right. I wonder if there is a stipulation that as a minor,
you need a coach
under 18. You need to have a guardian with you at the venue. That could be one of the criteria.
That's very interesting. Was she the only underage player who made the main draw? Abulkir, I believe, is 18 now.
Abulkir.
She doesn't wear eyewear now, so I'm assuming she's 18.
Yeah, I think she's out. I think she's aged up.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what about Sherbini coaching her against Gohar? And my theory was that she was coaching her because she wanted Orphy to give Gohar a battle to soften her up a little bit.
No, that's just the nature of Sherbini. She's just amazing. She's one of those players. She also helps Abulkir, who is a huge rival. Those two, for me, Abulkir and Orphy, are going to take over the mantle once Hamami and Gohar and Sherbini hang their rackets up. It'll be those two that will be doing battle. Sherbini helped her at the Paris Open. She's helped the Tournament of Champions, and she's now helped
she has.
Here.
Okay, I didn't realize there was a history.
Sherbini's helped Abulkir before.
But she hasn't helped Orphy before, as far as I could say.
Not Orphy, no. Why the Orphy connection? I'm not sure. But also, it's a testament just to how close these Egyptian players are. I don't think you'd get that in the UK, in England. If that was the case, you wouldn't have that same kind of help available.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Orphy is Orphy because of her dad, who is definitely a volatile figure. I've heard stories that made my hair stand on end about him with the Egyptian Federation. I wonder if, because of that, she's kept separate from that group of Egyptian players and really doesn't have that relationship. She's also much younger. Yeah. What could she possibly have in common with Sherbini, Hamami, Gohar, and those type of players? Yeah. So really maybe doesn't have people to pal around with like they do at tournaments. So the tour is a lonely place if you're an adult. It's got to be super lonely when you're a 17-year-old girl.
When you see the Egyptian players in and around the venues and the clubs and the hotels and that kind of stuff, obviously there are so many of them. Both men's and women's tours now are dominated with Egyptian players. There are still pockets within those
clicks
within that country where you'll get Hamami and Sherbini that may well hang out and have breakfast, or Walili and Tayeb, for example, or certain. And then you get those that don't. Somebody like Noran Gohar, for example, very much to keep herself to herself. She'll socialise somewhat with some of the people, but not to the extent of she used to carry around Tariq and Raneem's kid and also Farag's kid, Farida. So there was a terrifically tight bond. But then somebody like a Gohar, she won't opt to do that because she's too focused and concentrated on her job in hand. So Orphy may be a similar, in so many ways already we've alluded to with Gohar. She may have a similar personality type where she doesn't want to get involved with any of that because it's distracting to her on court.
For her mission. Yeah, no, it was just a very unusual. Unfortunately, it shows the smallness of squash in a way. I mean, it's endearing to see what Sherbini did for sure. And I think it would be great for Sherbini now. We always say she's at the end of her career, but she just won the world championship, to maybe take an Orphe under her wing and kind of show her the way. Because she was Orphe at one point, right? She was a 17-year-old who was like skyrocketing in the rankings, playing beating all the good players. And she probably experienced a lot of what Orphe's going through right now.
I think of the two players that Sherbini would offer to help, I think she sees a lot more of herself in Abulkir than she does in Orphe.
Okay.
So as a result of that, I think she would probably be tending to lend her advice and guidance more to Abulkir. Also, Sherbini's probably the type of person who likes the hunter more. You'll have to edit this.
No, I won't. I'm not going to edit unless you tell me what Orphe's dad did.
Don't do it then. Sherbini's more the kind of player that would like she won't go for the favourite. She'll go for the underdog.
Right. Gotcha. I understood. That's very fair. So getting into the final, obviously beat Orphe in the semis in 3 games, and then Sherbini
thumped, by the way.
Thumped her.
That was an absolute schooling.
Yeah.
What Gohar did to Orphe after all the hubbub and the results of Orphe beating Sherbini early on in the year,
right.
That was a little bit of exactly what Mohammed did to Zachariah.
Right.
Listen, kid,
yeah.
Just don't get ahead of yourself, because there's plenty more where I've come from, and you're not ready to get anywhere near me just yet.
That was as good as I've seen Gohar. That was scary good. She was scary good. And I've seen Gohar play scary good before. She looked absolutely amazing this tournament for sure.
Yeah. I said that on air. I said that this week was arguably the best version of Noron Gohar I've ever seen.
It's amazing, right?
Everything is just starting to come together.
And you've seen her win Chicago without dropping a game. You've seen her win world championships. I've seen her win a lot. You've seen her win a lot. So to say it's the best you've seen her is incredible. And yet, it came down to a 5th game, and Sherbini was up 4-1 in the 5th, and there was a very sketchy let call that could have been a stroke that would have made it 5-1. The ball came right back to Gohar, and Sherbini was there. It was called just a let, and then after that, Gohar just steamrolled her, just completely flipped the switch and just rolled over her. Sherbini looked like she ran out, similar to what I was just saying about Asal. I think everything might have caught up to Sherbini at that point when it was 4-1, because she actually hit a drop shot that hit the floor, which you never see. You never see her make mistakes like that.
That for me was one of the probably about as deep as Gohar's gone mentally to come through that particular match, because Sherbini was up pretty much in every single game. And I can say this now on air, and hopefully Sherbini's not listening, or Gohar, either one of them actually. At 2-1 and 8-3, I was having to interview the winner after the match, and you have to head to the corner of the potential winner. I was stood for 10 minutes in Sherbini's corner and watched that fourth game, where she was up 2-1 and 8-3, with my questions ready to interview Sherbini after the win.
Right. MC Nightmare. It's an MC Nightmare, PJ. Now you know what I go through.
8-3, handout, 4-8, 5-8, 6-8, 7-8, 8-all, and then all of a sudden, and then again, I'm still stood there. I'm in Sherbini's corner, 4-1 in the 5th, waiting for her to get the job done.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, Gohar finally, because, I mean, as well as she played, that final was dictated really by Noron Sherbini. And I don't think Gohar will mind me saying this, because she was playing second fiddle for the majority of it, and then just started to turn the screws. And then once she got to 4 or 5 or whatever it was in that 5th, there was only going to be one winner, because Sherbini had gone.
She was gone.
You could see she knew that she'd missed that moment, and it escalated out of control. Then I've had to dart and sprint around the back of the court over to Gohar's corner and turn up all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, acting, I knew you was going to win anyway. So
it's at that point when I'm emceeing and I have to ask these questions on court that I sprint over and grab my computer and look up Howard Harding, and I have it all on Sherbini, all of her wins every time they played each other, and then I have to switch it over real quick and do the whole thing again. But it's not fun. People don't understand how hard this is, PJ.
That was a learning experience for me, Bill, because I tell you what, from now on, what I will be doing, I will have my list of questions for Sherbini, and I'll have my list of questions for Gohar. So I'm ready to flip back.
Absolutely. So going to the men's, Diego Elias, they call, Joey Barrington calls Renee Malawili, or he used to, the Enigma. I think that has to be retired. Diego Elias is no longer the Puma or the Puma, whatever he calls it. He's the Enigma. He is an Enigma, dude.
He
He seems like half the season, 3/4 of the season, he doesn't care. And then
Yeah.
he wins the
Yeah.
British Open and balls his eyes out like it's the most important thing that ever happened to him. He could win every tournament if he really, it seems like he could anyways, or be involved in every tournament. It's very strange. He just won the British Open after not being an afterthought almost.
Yeah. We share the same frustrations, Bill, because Joey and I have said for years, I'm going back to the days when the US Open used to be at Drexel University.
Mm-hmm.
And when we saw Elias coming through the quarterfinals and semi-finals, may have got to the final one year, I can't quite remember. But we then saw the ability and how good he could be,
Right.
but got frustrated because he never, in those early events or those early years, when he got through and he would have one difficult match, it always stumped him for either the semis or the final. He could never, ever back up physically. So we just kept saying, as good as this kid is, he just needs to go out there and get himself fit and knock himself into shape. He doesn't need to learn how to play the game, all of that. He's a natural mover. He's a natural reader of the game. He's got all the attributes, but we said he's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we used to say. Then he goes away and he all of a sudden he does gets himself fitter and he does a bit more off-court work, comes out and then he goes and wins the World Championships and numerous major events. And then, as you said, he goes and disappears. So for me, a lot of people wrote him off and got frustrated because we know his potential and we know how good he can be when he turns it on and when he's fit, but we just don't see it regularly enough. And result of that, we then discount him from certain tournaments. We would only ever talk about Asal or
Farag or Cole.
Farag or Cole or people like that. Or never really gave Diego a chance. And then every now and again he'd come in and he'd win something and catch us all by surprise. And everybody's, where was that? So I think the outburst of emotion from this British Open was for that exact reason. After the world champs that he won last year, which is still a miracle, because the way that he played there was just a joke in Egypt. Wasn't the best of TOCs and wasn't the best of seasons up to the British Open. So nobody really gave him a chance. Didn't even look that good in his first couple of rounds. And then he goes out and he wins the bloody thing.
Crazy.
So in the back of his mind, just backtracking a little bit, when I went to the awards dinner, I was sat opposite him. He was on my table and I just said to play tonight because he battered Paul Cole. He gave Paul Cole a bit of a schooling. And I said, play, but I said, that was impressive. And he said, yeah, I finally clicked. Something finally clicked and I felt comfortable out on the court again. So maybe there was a bit of tension before that or whatever, a bit of who knows what. But after that match, there was a release of something. And then he went on and did what he did.
He was up 2-1. He was up 2-1. Asal looked like he finally got more interested in the match. And then Asal hurt his knee, like pretty seriously. It looked like so much.
It was a heavy landing.
Yeah, and after that, he didn't have anything left. Asal, he couldn't get after ball. So I was. Do you think Asal, if he didn't injure his knee, would have come back and won that match? I know it's easy, like it's just a guess. So you thought Diego was in control and was going to win that match regardless.
Looking back. And Diego even alluded to this in his post-match speech. Diego knows the score. He's out there. He's playing against Asal. He's played him enough times to sense when Mustafa's firing. Ironically, I think it's 9-6 now 10-6 in the head-to-heads, and Diego's won 6 of the last 7 meetings between the pair of them. So his record against Asal is far better than his record against Farag. Elias is definitely somebody who's glad to see the back of Farag because his track record against him was, by his standards, it was dreadful. It was like 15-3 or 6 or something. I can't remember. But even Diego said that he felt that Mustafa was flat in that final.
Oh, interesting.
Mustafa didn't have that normal punch, that power, that zip.
Right.
And I just feel like when you look at how Mustafa played, it was a match too far for him. After the events of the previous 3 weeks, 4 weeks, with everything going on off the court as well, he got up, it's the British Open final, and he just didn't have everything to give. And I'm not taking anything away from Elias because even a fully fit and fully fledged Asal, I don't think would have beaten Elias just because of the way Elias was playing. Elias was that good. It was just made to look a little bit easier than it was because of the drop off from the South.
So, question for you: is it worrisome for the PSA Tour that a flat Asal coming off all he came off of, and a typically someone like Elias who isn't motivated still make it to the finals of this tournament and one of them wins it? Are those two players that much better than the rest of them going forward? And if they really wanted to, are they going to just win everything for the next 5 years?
Elias and Asal could potentially do what Gohar and Shabini did in 2024.
That's what I was wondering.
And that was reach the final of every major event.
Right.
Now, Joel Makin will certainly have a thing or two to say about it. Paul Cole looked very good in Birmingham this week. That's good to see him back out there enjoying his squash again. So they will certainly pose threats. It may be the odd win throughout the season, but I would say for the majority of it, it's going to be Elias and Asal that will be contesting.
See, that's what I'm afraid of. It gets a little tedious after a while to see the same players, and I was hoping with the Farag retirement, we'll see somebody else maybe get into that mix in the semis and the finals, because I don't want to see the same.
Not for a little while. Yeah. I can't see it. All
right. Lastly, for me, and of course I have to mention it, I seriously think that Lee Beachill is now purposely minimizing trophy ceremonies that the PSA is running. It was the British Open, the most prestigious championship in the world. And they basically had a single table outside the court this time. They did the trophy ceremony outside the court. Were they afraid somebody's going to slip on the glass or something, on the glass court? Probably. And it was so barren. It was like the basement of the KGB prison where they assassinate people. It was just like so stark. What is going on? PJ, what are they doing?
I don't know.
They're mocking me.
I don't know. I can't.
They're mocking me.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I can.
But this may have been something to do with television, because you can't have these two long-winded, drawn-out trophy ceremonies to fit in with the schedule of the TV channels. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. There may be a situation where that trophy ceremony could only run for, say, 10 minutes.
Okay. So they're not...
And they can't have anything to...
So it doesn't have to be long. I don't think it has to be long, but let's put some banners up or something. Don't. It's so barren. I think... So you're saying they're not doing it because of me?
Short answer, yes. It's not because of you.
All right. I feel better. I think I feel better about that, because it just they're basically robbing me of joy, and it needs to stop.
Listen, if that's the case and you're that upset and offended about it, maybe you could start your own company where you offer tournament organisers, trophy ceremony suggestions and ideas. You could be onto something, Bill.
It sounds like another idea that's not going to make me any money. I like that. So just what we need. Moving along, they did have, along with the Hall of Fame ceremony, you mentioned it, they did have the award ceremony. The one that I want to talk about, and we don't have to go too deep into it, is the Player of the Year award, which is voted on by the fans and also by a committee, a PSA committee they talk about. They don't really mention any names. Strangely, for it being the most prestigious tournament of the year, the vote was taken before the British Open. The British Open didn't count for some reason, the most prestigious tournament of the year, which is very odd. I'm going to read the stats of two players, and you tell me which one you think should have won the Player of the Year. The first player had 4 total wins of the year. 2 runner-up, 2 semis, 1 quarter. The other player won 6, and 7 if you include the British Open, 4 finals, 1 semi. The first player I mentioned, the only differential, because obviously the second player resumes blows it away. The first player won the World Championship. Now, which player, the player that won 7 tournaments, including the prestigious British Open, 4 finals and 1 semi, or the player who only had 4 wins, 2 runner-up, 2 semis, and 1 quarter, which player should have won Player of the Year?
There, you have a very good case.
Okay.
However, I can only guess that PSA are recognising the magnitude of the 8th world title win for Shabini.
So
as a result of that, they are rewarding her for reaching that milestone more so than Gohar, who's obviously been unbelievably consistent and dominated the year from a tournament and ranking standpoint.
I would agree with you normally, and that makes sense. And if that's the reason, then I suppose they should probably not call it the Player of the Year. They should call it some other award, because to me, Player of the Year means the best player. It's like MVP, the difference between MVP and Player of the Year. You might not be the best player, but you could be the most valuable. So was she the most valuable player of the tour? Probably. The 8th win gives her that.
Probably, yeah.
And I would normally agree with that, except for the fact that last year they gave it to Diego Elias. He didn't win. He won his first ever world championship, and that was after Farag won 7 titles and 4 platinums last. And they gave it to Diego.
Yeah, but he won it in Egypt against basically the Egyptian national team.
I understand that, but they have to give Player of the Year has to go hard. It just has to.
Gohar,
so,
yeah,
in my opinion, so I think it was worse was that they gave the male Player of the Year to Farag. And again, it seems like it was the MVP because they gave it to him because he retired. Because he only had 5. Not only he had 5 wins, 5 finals, only 2 platinums, 1 semi. Asal had 7 wins, including the World Championships, 5 platinums. How could he not be Player of the Year? Come on.
I reckon they had inside knowledge that Farag was retiring. They know Asal's going to be out there cleaning up over the next few years. So it's just a matter of time before he wins Player of the Year after Player of the Year.
Just come on. I mean,
it doesn't add up. No, I get it.
Does not add up. It bugs me. I'm going to jump in and say it's all anti-Asal. I'm the opposite of Quash, whatever his name is.
Quash Badge.
Yes, I'm pro Asal. So I just
on paper. Then let me ask you, who would be your female Player of the Year and then male Player of the Years?
Oh, for sure. Gohar and Asal. Runaway, like landslide. It's not even close. If you're just going by sheer performance alone, it's not. I think Gohar and Sherbini are closer because of the World Championship that Sherbini won. They're closer.
What about Amina Orfi?
She was probably 3. I'd give her the third place because she won some big tournaments. She beat Sherbini. She got, it's funny, she got Young Player of the Year award, but she shared it with some other girl who I never heard of, basically.
Yeah, a young Indian girl. Yeah, I didn't understand that bit.
Yeah, so either way, it's just my pet peeves when it comes to things like that. It always seems like there's slanted, and again, not as open a selection process as it may be. Number one, you have to include the British Open. You have to. And they don't. Yeah. And number 2, we don't know who's on that committee. And are they taking the votes? Is that person in the PSA office in Leeds like seeing the votes, seeing the landslide for Asal and saying, nah, we don't want Asal to win that? I have a feeling that's what happened.
Not this year.
Not this year. So lastly, PJ, lastly on the PSA Tour, the WTF, which is so aptly named WTF, it's just, you can't make it up. It was named, is the last event of the year. The top 8 players, barring injury, are in it. And we have for the women, Gohar, Sherbini, Weaver, Orfi, Gillis, Satomi, Siva, and Amanda Sobi gets in because Hanya Hamami's injured. So she gets in the 8th position. On the men's side, Asal, Elias, Cole, Macon, Marwan, Mo, Gawad, and Momin. Question for you.
Momin's not confirmed.
He's confirmed as being the 8th person, whether he drops out or not. Okay, he was confirmed today as the 8th person. The PSA popped it open.
There were rumors that he would be hanging up his rackets.
I had said he was retiring during the British Open, given me by a very good resource, but that did not happen. Maybe he heard me and didn't do it because didn't do that because of that.
Because he is.
So the World Tour Finals, PJ, is it after all of this? Besides the prize money? So this last year it was $200K. There is no prize money listed right now. They moved it from Bellevue to Toronto. Is this a worthwhile event anymore? Is it more? Do the players, besides the money, really want to play in it? No.
No, they don't. No. It is a glorified exhibition event. It was one of the events that was basically a Brucey bonus for your efforts throughout the year.
Right.
And if you do well throughout the season, then at the end of it, you go and get to play in another event where you get a very hefty check at the end of it.
For sure.
And I always enjoyed it because the ones I played at were in London,
right,
which was just round the corner from where I was.
Made it easy on you.
It made it very easy, yeah. Always a lovely hotel, always amazing crowds, always great matches against the top 8 players, and always a good payday. Would I have wanted to travel across to Canada or the West Coast to go and do it? Probably not, but now the money in it is a lot higher than it was when I played.
For sure.
There are some rumours that with it now going to Toronto, the venue and the area that they're using for the World Tour Finals possibly could be the new venue for the World Championships.
PJ, breaking news.
Potentially,
I've heard the same. I've heard the same thing. I've heard that. I've heard that Toronto is hosting the World Championships next year.
Yeah, I've heard some.
I haven't heard a venue, whether it's going to be in that same studio, but I've heard it is going to be hosted and sponsored by Smart Centers. I think is the.
I don't know.
I think it's Elias.
I heard there was a couple of players who were talking about it and trying to get an idea of where it was going to be. So
I've heard it from several players that it's going to be in Toronto next.
Watch this space. Yeah, we'll find out, but. listen, the bodies are tired, the minds are
Right.
tired. It's been a hectic schedule, a very hectic back end of the season, especially for all the players that are going to play because they've been doing well in the event.
Right.
Some of them will treat it as a bit of a rest and they won't fully commit themselves, still walk away with a decent chunk of change.
Mohammed.
But for somebody, they're going to be picking up 40 grand, possibly 50 grand for 4 days' work. Early rounds are best of 3 as well, so happy days.
For sure. I met Shirbagy last year told me in an interview that he made more money in that tournament than he had made in any single tournament all year, and he played 2 matches.
Yeah, yeah.
and
for somebody like Mo's actually got a chance because Mo's actually playing really well at the minute.
Right.
And he'll get up for something like this, rest assured, and he'll see that as an opportunity to having a nice little end of season bonus.
I would think for competitive purposes, what they should do, and I understand that there's a sponsor involved and he probably wants to see tournaments. And in this case, if Toronto is in fact going to host the World Championships next year, it's a good preamble to that, a good way to show that they could host this kind of event. But for the players who are totally burnt out from the season, and rightfully, to me, it would be better have the $200,000 prize pool on each side and divvy it up based on results during the season. So as an end of season bonus, and it would make some really good matches by the end of the season. So if you're playing like a first round or a second round match in the British Open or whatever the last tournament is, that you might be like, I'm not going to win anyways, and I'm not going to give my all. But if I win, I could get into the top 8 and that'll qualify me for 10 grand bonus at the end of the year. It could really make more matches competitive, have people withdraw less from tournaments because that prize pool is there at the end of the year, in my opinion, as opposed to going.
Interesting concept, but then I suppose PSA want to get something out. I don't know. I can't speak on PSA's behalf, but
no, I got you.
They want to get something more out of the players. They can't just say at the end of the day, if you've had a good season, we're going to give you an extra 50 grand.
Well, set it up ahead of time and make it like the chase for the FedEx Cup or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but even the FedEx Cup still has a final.
Yeah, they do.
As a final tournament.
They do. Do you see they changed the rule, by the way, changing subjects? No more stroke advantage for the leader going in, and they're just going to play it straight.
Flat out. Because it used to be 10 strokes. Some people had to come from behind.
They did that for 3 years, and this year they just changed it last week for some reason.
Love it. I love that. I don't like that concept of 10 strokes.
Exactly. So, PJ, for this last segment, I'm going to do something very American. We're going to talk the NSL. So I was in Chicago this past weekend. The Chicago Grizzlies played the Lake Erie Beacons. So, as is known on this podcast, huge Chicago Grizzly fan, season ticket holder, and the Chicago Grizzlies and their history in the NSL have yet to win a match. And as a Grizzly fan, this is what we do in the United States.
Okay.
When a team,
for those of you who can't see, Bill currently has a brown paper bag on his head with 3 holes cut in it.
Yes.
And Grizz written on the top. What's that all about?
This is a protest. So when teams in the United States, when there's failing franchises and franchises that aren't doing justice to their fans, put paper bags over their heads so they still go to the games, but they don't want to be recognized as fans of that team any longer. And I love the Grizzly ownership. I love the people in Chicago, but this can't go on. We need the Grizz need to succeed. The Grizz need to maybe blow it up, start from scratch. Longtime season ticket holder to the Grizz. I'm going to buy season tickets next year, probably. I probably will because I'm one of those fans. But I feel that the changes need to be made, whether they need to be made in the management of the Grizzlies, the coaching of the Grizzlies, the players. I'm not sure. I'm not one to answer that. But as a fan,
well, it sounds like all three.
Yeah, not happy with the Grizzlies' performance. So that's why that's the bag.
I think that's been duly noted, Bill. You've made your
all right, thank you. I'll take the bag off now since I'm suffocating. You didn't know what that was, Pete. You're not familiar with the bag. I think it's...
No, I've never seen that.
It was big in the NFL when franchises would go. Like the Patriots were really bad one year. The Browns were really bad year. Fans would come with paper bags on their head. So I thought I'd bring that back. No, I had a fun time in Chicago. Chicago did lose. They were under the gun because Yusuf Ibrahim withdrew because of his shoulder injury. So they had to substitute a younger player. He did a great job. Yi-Sin Xiao from Yale, actually, the former Yale All-Americans, filled in admirably. But in the end, you can't replace Yusuf Ibrahim with a player like that. They lost again, but had a fantastic weekend. Chicago is such a great city, especially in the springtime. It's one of the greatest cities in America in the springtime. The weather's beautiful.
We had the Worlds there one year in, I think, April or May. I think it was May. And just all the restaurants were out on the sidewalks and it just had a completely different vibe. Yeah, I loved it. Chicago is probably my third favorite city in the US. New York, Boston, and then Chicago.
I'd have to go. I think I'm going to go Chicago, New York. I think I like Chicago better than New York.
Really?
Yeah, Chicago has I hate Boston just because I hate the people in Boston and I hate their sports teams. Chicago probably is more like Boston than it is like New York in the end.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a bit of a merge between the two.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So again, just a great weekend, and I just want to tell you, and I know we talked about it beforehand. As PJ, I guess prejudice is the word, because the word prejudice is prejudging. So before I meet someone, I have a certain thought about them, and you can't convince me differently.
A preempted idea.
A preempted idea, exactly. And so I always thought Greg Marsh was like one of the most miserable people on tour. Never really gave the time of day to me when I was emceeing events. Was never overly friendly. Guy. Like, I hung out with him a bit in Chicago. Was just a fantastic guy. So public apology to Gregoire Marsh.
Super kid. I've always got along well with Greg. We became good pals a good few years back. I can't remember where it was, but we went out and played golf a few times, and he's massively into his golf. He may actually started in Chicago when they used to have the simulator upstairs on the 10th or 11th floor.
Oh yeah, the University Club.
And at the University Club, yeah. So Nicky Mueller, Gregoire Marsh, myself, Shabs as well actually came up and played a little bit. That's how long ago we're going.
They let people smoke up there?
There was no smoking. And got chatting with him then and just struck a bit of a chord, and he's fantastic. He's one of the most sociable and friendly
100%
of the French players by quite a stretch. Yeah, great kid, great kid. And he's having one of the best seasons of his career so far. He's beat Gawad and
beat Shabaghi in Houston.
He's had two players he's never beaten in his life. Yeah, awesome kid. Awesome.
Even people my age, PJ, could grow and learn things. Gregoire Marsh.
Takes a man to be able to admit that in public.
Possible new best friend, Gregoire Marsh? Possible?
Yeah, listen, if you keep talking like that, he may even come on here one stage.
You never know. All right, PJ, it was great to be back with you. You did a great job. It was so refreshing to see you on Squash TV.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't, you know me, I don't like to slag. I do like to slag other people. The difference is stark, is all I could say. So you did a great job. It was great seeing you. And I'm going to see you this weekend because, PJ, you are doing the NSL match that I'm emceeing in Westchester County. It is going to be the Greenwich Panthers playing Philadelphia for a spot in the playoffs. So it should be a fun match. So look forward to seeing you there. Yeah,
I wish it was due to public demand, but I think they were just desperate because somebody dropped out.
Laura Massaro couldn't make it.
Yeah, exactly. I had a great time the first matchup. That was really good fun. It's a very different format, something unique, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. Friday, it will be
late your time.
6 p.m.
Late your time.
Yeah, 11 p.m. 11:15 we go on air, so it's a late one. I'll have the cocoa and the snacks at the ready, but no, I'm looking forward to it. It's great to be part of, and the teams down there are doing a good job of spreading the love and bringing a different dynamic and a different format.
Definitely.
But it's entertaining and it's good value to watch.
Absolutely. PJ, look forward to seeing you then, and we'll talk next week.
Bill, good to see you again.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for.